listeners. Welcome to the Culture and People Cast. Today we have Tracie Sponenberg. Tracie, in a few sentences, would you tell us who you are and what you do?
Hi, I am the Chief People Officer for a company called the Granite Group, and we're a plumbing wholesaler located in New England. And on the side, I do quite a bit of speaking and clubhousing and coordinating of DisruptHR. And I have a partner, Michelle Strasburger, in HR Rebooted, which is a podcast and HR project focused on changing the world of work.
Oh, I love it. Anything that's going to help change the world of work. Look, I was raised by hippies and I just want to restore humanity. Humanity and performance need some help in the world of work and the workplaces. So I appreciate what you're doing, Tracie. You've been at this for a while with Culture and People. What's your favorite thing about this work?
I think my favorite thing is the impact that I get to have on people, right? So I started my career in a really large company. I worked for UPS, so global, tens of thousands of people all over the world, and found out pretty quickly that that wasn't where I wanted to live my life. And I found that I could have the most impact in the business in a kind of mid-size. So I spent my career in mid-sized companies that are big enough to have some strategy, right? But small enough to really have an impact on the business.
Yes, I'm been favoring more and more the startups. I work a lot with the startups and the midsize. I too worked in some really big companies and some small ones, State Farm, Manpower, global headquarters, right? But then also some midsize and some startups, and then the nimbleness of those small companies really great. So regardless though, I'm hearing from a lot of companies from all the way from the startup spectrum to the Fortune 100 that engaging talent is a challenge right now. And we could say now more than ever, but I think just in general, what are your thoughts on engagement in the workplace?
Yeah, I mean, that could be a whole other hours long conversation, right? I think we miss the mark a lot on engagement, and we're fortunate at our company and to have super high engagement. And it starts with the top. It starts with our CEO, who, and now he's doing it again, but in normal times is in our locations. We have 50 locations. He's in our locations all the time. I'm in our locations all the time. The rest of our executive team is in our locations all of the time. Could never do undercover boss, and just being there for people. We miss this a lot. We miss, leading by example. We miss asking people how they're doing, how they're feeling, how their mental health is, asking them what they think about their job, having these conversations about career development, designing jobs that really people have an impact in the business. And all of our people have an impact on our business, regardless of where they are in the company. And we also, no matter whether you're the CEO or whatever position you have a voice. Everyone has a voice. So this could be a much longer conversation, but really, talk to people. Yes. Ask how they're feeling. Certainly engagement surveys are okay, but throwing something out once a year and then just letting it sit there isn't going to do anything.
Yeah, right. Listen and then take action, right?
Yeah. Listen.
Because people, a lot of companies will ask, right? They'll do the pulse survey or they'll do the annual engagement survey, but they're not listening, truly listening, and then acting. And when we say act, I think you'll agree with this, Tracie. We don't mean that you have to do everything that was on the list that they suggested, but do some of the things. Like there's nothing in those suggestions that you can do. Yes, there is, right? And then explain why you can't do the other things, even if it's sheer capacity. We can't do all these things. So here's why we pick these things. And these are the things that we're keeping our eye on.
Super important. And that goes without saying in our organization. I'm on the board of a nonprofit, and we just went through this, and that was a little bit harder, I think, for them. Well, you have to explain why this is coming up, why you can't do X, Y, or Z.
Yeah. And Tracie, you mentioned designing jobs. Like that just made my heart sing. Like the fact that you use that phrase of designing jobs instead of this same old job description, and then going to figure out, like when Anna leaves, you don't find Anna plus, right? You find like something very new. What does the organization need right now? So whether it's that or something different, Tracie, I'd love for us to get really tactical. There's somebody who's heard us talking who says like, all right, Tracie and Anna, you've convinced me. I need to do better around our culture, our people practices. What's a behavior or a practice that they could start doing tomorrow?
So I'll talk about a few things, because these things were really elusive to me until the past few years. And they may not on the face of it seem really critical to this work, but they are. Self-awareness. You cannot do good work. You cannot expect things from other people if you don't understand yourself. And that was something that took me a long time to get there. Empathy and vulnerability. So these things are so absolutely critical to leadership, and anything with engagement, anything with culture. Well, culture is really owned by everybody. It starts at the very top, and you really need to develop this skill of empathy, and it can be developed if you're not born with it. Like I wasn't born naturally empathetic. And then demonstrating vulnerability and making it okay for other people in your organization to be themselves and to bring their whole selves, or maybe their best selves, or whatever self they want to bring to work. Just normalizing that process.
Agreed. I think we need to normalize just having imperfections, having mental health conversations. Is there what's a good way for you, maybe even a way that you practiced vulnerability? Because I think a lot of people hear this, like, I'm very self-aware. No, I practice vulnerability. And then you and I would watch them and go like, No. So like, how do you do that? How do you know if you're doing that?
Yeah, so storytelling is a good way. I did this a few months ago. My mother died last year, and I had to lead COVID response for my company at the same time. And you wouldn't have seen this on my face if you were talking to me. And so in front of dozens of people in our leadership team on a Zoom call, of course, I talked about that. And I said, we need to be talking to our people about their mental health. All of our people regularly having these conversations, because there were times when I could barely get out of bed over the last few months. And, my mother's death, how it impacted me, you couldn't see on my face. You wouldn't know. And I wouldn't tell you unless you asked how I was doing. And then I would probably tell you not great. And then you would maybe ask why, right? And so we have to have these conversations. So as leaders, I'm not going to share my deepest, darkest thoughts, but I am going to share, this wasn't a great day, or, this is my mom's 6-month anniversary. I had a tough time. I'm going to share things like that, because then that normalizes it and it gives others permission, and that creates a better culture.
Do you think that applies to where we're at right now? Like the lack of knowing, we don't have a lot of 100% knowing, right, of what's going to happen next. And so I think a lot of our ability to be vulnerable right now stems around, for companies and leaders, saying, I don't know what's going to happen next. I'm in the same boat as you. Here's what we think. Here's what we're hoping for. And by the way, here's what we need from you. So it can even be that. We don't have to be Pollyanna. We don't have to be like Einstein and Pollyanna had a baby, right? Like the smartest, most positive person. We can be like, we don't really know. And by the way, things can be negative sometimes.
You should be honest and transparent. And I think that's something that's also critical. It was, we went through the times early last year when we had no idea what, we'd even have a company. We were as honest and transparent as possible with everybody all the time.
Yeah. Makes me happy to hear that, Tracie. Oh my gosh, you guys are doing so much good work and growing. So congratulations on the growth. Let's do 2 more quick questions before I let you go. One is a shout out. Who would you want to shout out for doing good work in the ring around people and culture, maybe even as a possible guest?
Yep, I'm going to do a few shout outs, and I'll do them real quick. I wrote these down. I don't normally do this, but and you should look up all of these people: Lotus Buckner, Ricklin Woods, Angelica Padalon, Tiffany Castano. They have a regular room on Clubhouse. Barbie Winterbottom and Tara Furiani. There's tons and tons and tons of people, but these are women I connected with in the past year or so that are just doing extraordinary work in the space.
And I'm familiar with Tiffany. I know we do work through Culture First together. And Tiffany, we'll be joining a Clubhouse room together soon. So I love it. We will include all of their LinkedIn in the notes so that people can get connected to them. And then the last one is your favorite resources that have advanced your own thinking related to people and culture in the workplace.
Yeah, my favorite is my kind of community that we created, the HR Rebels. It's just a Zoom call every Wednesday, and it's just a wonderful support group, information group, just wonderful people first people. But I lean pretty heavily on the Predictive Index. I'm a big fan of PI. They have some incredible resources. I've learned so much about myself and about all kinds of things through them. I love the HR Social Hour community and the wider HR community and Twitter. And I just read Redefining HR by Lars Schmidt, which I love. And he's going to be a Clubhouse guest coming up. And I think it's excellent for all people in the people space. It's an excellent read.
Yeah. As somebody who myself, Tracie, I was in house 19 years, now 5 years as an entrepreneur. The first half of my year or first half of my time in house was spent in operations and supply chain. I fell into people in HR because I was very opinionated and I had ideas on how we were going to grow and attract people. They're like, hey, do you want to do that? And then they moved me to HR. So I agree with you that redefining HR, reinvigorating HR, however you want to position that, it's a tremendously powerful tool and team when used and invested in correctly. So I love to hear that you guys are doing that in your organization. And for sure, Lars and the other people there for HR Social Hour and the HR Rebels. I just started following your hashtag the other day. So you'll know that they're working on LinkedIn. I was like, following that hashtag, want to see what's going on HR Rebels. Because man, I was one, I am one, and I love the work that you're doing, Tracie. So thanks for what you do for culture in people.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me, Anna.
For sure. Everybody, peace and progress.